Greetings and welcome back. I'm going to be talking today about Skyrim, and specifically about Skyrim Redone, and even more specifically about Perkus Maximus or Perkus Maximus. Those of you who don't know, Skyrim Redone was a indescribably good mod made by the neurologically gifted Tendo that altered the gameplay, the perk system, races, standing stones, and virtually every aspect related to combat and abilities, and I mean, you name it, he did it. Now, Perkus Maximus could be rightly called the descendant of Skyrim Redone. Skyrim Redone, beziehungsweise Perkus Maximus, why did I say beziehungsweise? We don't have that word in English, but anyway, you could ignore beziehungsweise. Perkus Maximus is the descendant of Skyrim Redone in a more evolved form, essentially. From the words of the maker himself, Skyrim Redone was created at a time when he was just not as adept at it as he is now. He's learned a great deal in the time since the inception of Skyrim Redone, and he is proceeding forward. Now, some of you might have known that, some of you might have not, but it is incorrect, I believe I said that at an earlier time or an earlier date, that this would be Skyrim Redone Reloaded. In fact, it's not. This is really a mod that affects perks and abilities and what have you, but very much different in the execution to Skyrim Redone. Now, before I go into some of the itty-bitty details and the nitty-gritty details, let me just say that from what I've gathered, from my understanding, I'm an outsider here. I'm sort of like a news reporter. I'm trying to gather information from the High Lord Tendo. What Perkus Maximus does differently from, say, Skyrim Redone is there is a lot less repetition. And I agree with Tendo. There was, just as in vanilla, you had repetition. You would have light armor perks, 4 times to up to 50% better damage reduction. Same with heavy armor, only it went a little higher. And I mean, it was just repetition. I mean, perks for this just to get more damage reduction. These are boring. And what Tendo is doing now is essentially revolutionizing his old project. I mean, look at it in terms of evolution. I mean, if Skyrim Redone was Australopithecus, maybe Perkus Maximus is modern Homo sapiens, and believe me, we do have our flaws, but it's certainly a lot better than walking around as Australopithecus. So I'm going to reveal a bit of information I've received from Tendo himself. If those you don't know, you should follow Perkus Maximus on Facebook. I'll be posting a link. There are some promising images there, and little tidbits you can gather from the images, which probably will just leave it to guesswork, but nevertheless, very interesting. So, according to Tendo, most of the perks are done, and Wayfarer, and like I said, there's no specific order to this. I'm just going to be telling you what I've been able to find out and ascertain. Wayfarer, those of you who knew, was kind of a ranger-based perk tree. It allowed you to survive better. It allowed you to run a little faster in the wilderness, locate animals, creatures, render them harmless after a certain amount of perks, and harvest more ingredients from plants, and so on and so forth. Now, what it seems to be now is, as from his own words, much more a tree that has a sort of druidic function to it. So in fact, a Wayfarer will have shape-shifting in it. There will be perks in the Wayfarer tree that will give you shape-shifting abilities. Interesting. The other thing I should mention about this project is this is a project that is incorporating other people's skills. It is true that Tendo probably is a demigod when it comes, or maybe perhaps a god. He's certainly a high lord when it comes to modding. But in terms of textures, art, and other things, he's actually recruited other people. I remember at the beginning he was requesting aid. And so he's told me that shape-shifting spells are present, new shape-shifting spells, but they're being outsourced to someone else, meaning this person's working on his own and will be incorporated into the mod. But so yeah, there is a more druidic feel to Wayfarer rather than a rangery survival feel. This is just my interpretation now. We don't have all the details. All the trees have been planned out. 95% of them have been implemented. There has not yet, as to this date, been proper testing, but this is nonetheless good news. The patcher, which is an important element we don't know a whole lot about yet, is about at approximately 85% completion. But these are good numbers. We're getting very close to 100%. Not functionally complete yet, but close, according to Nintendo. And there's some other interesting tidbits. Now, like I said, there are people working in a parallel fashion to this, making textures, special effects, spells, and so on and so forth. So I expect this to really be beyond the ken of Skyrim redone. Whatever initial skepticism I had has been wiped clean by my blind faith in the divine abilities of Tendo. So yeah, interesting. For example, that weapons have been redone as well. According to Tendo, they're fist weapons. There's knuckles, claws, katars. You might be familiar with some of those, particularly the katars, vicious, which require meshes and textures. And interestingly enough, weapons themselves, you might have seen this before, have different classifications. They'll just be classified as sort of blunt, piercing, bladed, and so on and so forth. I might not have complete information on that. And so according to Tendo, specific weapon perks specific to weapons, the good old days with clubs or great swords or battle axes and so on and so forth. I don't know if they're going to be implemented. I'm quoting here, fist weapons are the only weapon type that have perks specifically for their type only, and they all revolve around stealing your opponent's gear mid-combat. Heavy and light weaponry trees have identical layouts and look like genitalia. I demand that this be mentioned. So yes, the heavy and light weaponry trees look like genitalia trees, so that's important as well. The final enchanting perk burns dragon souls to create Uba enchantments. And I think what we're going to see as well, particularly I mentioned the light armor and heavy armor, that perks that really stand out, perks that do in the armor department a lot more than just protect you. I suspect since he's done away with this sort of repetitive more damage protection, perks are going to really have real meaning. So you might actually, this is my interpretation in the light armor tree, have less overall damage protection, but a lot more combat fluidity, a lot more ability in combat, a lot more that goes into it that will help you become a more effective warrior or thief or rogue or whatever you happen to be. And in a similar fashion, heavy armor would do that, of course, more for a cavalier-like, heavy knightish kind of character, what have you. Some other things he mentions, the warrior module comes with more of an elaborate gear slowdown than SkyRe combat. Carrying a shield will slow attack speed down a lot more than a helmet, for example. Interesting. And yeah, the fact that it works on attack speed is also new, not restricted to the player. So, tit for tat, interesting. More trap crafting. And here's an interesting thing. The Animunculi perks, which were formerly an alteration, have been reassigned to the smithing tree, which kind of makes sense in a way. We haven't seen the tree yet, but my suspicion would be the prerequisite for Animunculi probably would be the ability to smith, to work magical items, or do smithing work on magical items, so working on enchanted items. That's how I would envision that working specifically. It would make sense from a lore perspective as well. And as he said, Wayfarer is much more druidic or druidish, as he puts it here. Phantom summoning is still in, but there are new mechanics that don't intervene with regular summonings. Interesting. Phantoms and Perkus Maximus are mostly walking debuffs. Mage trees have focus perks. Warrior trees have mastery perks, and thief trees have prodigy perks that all work very differently. And here are some stats. People love large numbers. Current number of scripts, 265, ranging between 5 and 500 lines of code. Current number of scripts that permanently clutter your script pipeline, 0. Current number of perks, probably final, 462. Vanilla Skyrim, 251. Current number of total records, spells, magic effects, perks, objects, explosions, everything news in the master file, 3,700. Current number of records on my patcher touches or creates with a minimal load order not finished, 5,000. Total lines of code on my patcher, 20,000. So that in a nutshell is, and you can see a few of the images here, what has been revealed to us. It sounds very, very promising, even though we've gotten tidbits. And as much as it's an heir or descendant, Homo sapiens to Australopithecus of Skyrim redone, it sounds radically different. I'm very much looking forward to it. As you know, many of you know, I've been taking a break from Skyrim redone, doing my Let's Play of the Mass Effect trilogy, and I suspect when I'm done with the trilogy and when when Perkus Maximus comes out, which sounds reasonably close off, I'll probably be resuming my adventures in Skyrim, but we shall see. So check out and subscribe to his Facebook page, his Fakebook page. He's a funny guy with I've recently discovered a very interesting sense of humor. You'll have to see what I'm talking about by looking at the Fakebook page. And as always, may the gods watch over you. In this case, they surely must, because we're talking about Skyrim here. Until the next time, fortune favor you, potatoes, may they not crush you. Bye-bye.